I don't know.
But you're now live.
All right.
Making that face.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 51 of the F Stops here. I'm I'm back. I've been gone for 2 weeks, so it's nice to be back. And was suffering from a very catastrophic headache this morning, so I'm a little subdued till we start talking about some of the very cool topics we have later today. I'm joined by Jamie, who manages never to miss a show. I'm still trying to figure out how. And our wonderful longtime guest, Alex, who's here to drop several knowledge bombs on us today. So welcome, Alex. We always love having you on the show, so it's gonna be fantastic. And Zach currently cannot make the show tonight, but he's IMing me right now about why he can't ask questions. So the question and answer app is definitely on. So please, if you have any questions during the show today, we will try to get to it. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So, Alex, I know you've been really busy, especially with something really cool this past weekend. So why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
So I taught my first class at Rayco Photo Center downtown San Francisco on Saturday, and I was nothing but nerves leading up to this class. I'm not new to teaching, but I am new to teaching photography. So photography more so than a lot of other subjects, I feel like there's a big subjective aspect to it that I'm very uncomfortable with. So teaching that to a group of students was tough versus, say, teaching someone how to do something very specific. Like history, I would teach history, and it's like, okay, here's the timeline, here's the facts. And there is some of that, actually quite a bit of that in photography, but I feel like there's this other element that can't be taught, and I was trying to teach that. But everyone seemed to get a lot out of it. I'll find out my evaluations. I was evaluated, so we'll see how that goes. But I'll be teaching another one in August, and I hear the second one, much like children, is much easier than the first. So
Nice, very nice. So how did you get people to sign up for that? How did you organize it?
Reiko took care of all of it. So they approached me, and so they charge the student a certain fee, and then I only get a rather small but fair percentage of that. And then they take care of all the logistics. That's what their chunk pays for. So I don't sign up students. I don't deal with cancellations. I don't even find the space. They have the space for me. And they even provided the gear, though I did bring my own gear because I wasn't familiar with their strobes and I didn't want to take any chances.
Gotcha. Oh, so I didn't realize it was at their studio space. That's
Yep.
pretty cool. Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
so that's somewhere in San Francisco, or did you travel for that?
No, it's in San Francisco. Rayco Photo Center is on 3rd and Bryant, and so pretty centrally located, has a parking lot next to it, and it's mostly a dark room. And they also have a lighting studio and then a digital studio and a gallery portion in the front. So it's one of the last remaining bastions in the city for film photographers and education outside of a formal school. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what was your class size for this?
It was 7.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And at first, the coordinator said, "Oh, you filled your class." And then I was frightened. And I said, "Well, what's filling the class?" And she said, 8. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I thought that that was really low. But when you actually start, when you're actually in the classroom, you realize that any more than 8 would be really, really tough.
Don't say that. I'm I'm doing workshops this year for the first time, like bigger ones, and I've kind of been given some liberties with it, and I set my class size to 25 people.
That's
Oh,
insane.
Yeah. Thanks for the
Good,
encouragement.
yeah, good luck with that. Well, I mean, I guess it just depends too on how you teach. If you're super individualized or if you're more stand up in front of the class traditional style. I mean, Joe McNally, I've watched him teach classes with almost
Right.
40 people. I mean, it can be done,
Yep.
definitely.
Cool. Yeah. Now
I,
I'm scared.
Yeah, I would be scared too. But again, like I was, it'll be scary, and then it will be less scary as time
Yeah.
goes on. And you'll feel pretty amazing afterward because you have conquered this really frightening hurdle.
So once it was done and the adrenaline kind of faded from your system, did you sit down and think, man, I like this. I think I want to do this a lot more, or is it kind of just a once or twice thing and you don't really know if you want to do it again?
Yeah, right afterward, I thought I never want to do this again. and and the class went really well, so it wasn't like it was because something bad happened. I mean, it was just I never wanted to do it again. But my boss said, "Oh yeah, you say that, but you'll go back. You say that after," and I do say that a lot. I'll write a really big article for someone, and then I'll be like, "I'm never doing this again," and still write for 500 px. It's like 4 articles later. I'll do a really big shoot for something, and then I'll say, like real estate, I find really hard. I'll do a big real estate shoot, and I'll say, I'm never doing this again, and I've done like 3 of them. So I'm easily spooked, but then I'm brave at the same time, so I always go back.
Yeah. I know I've done like really, really small intimate workshops, like 4 or 5 people, but this will be like the format will be like a instructional for an hour and a half in the camera store, and then there will be a second day portion to it that'll be like a photo walk portion where we kind of go over the putting into use what I taught the day before in the class. So it won't be super intimate, because it's a bigger class size, but I do like the one-on-one getting to interact with every single person. So that's why I told them that 25 would be the max. So I'm hoping that it ends up being more along the size that you got to work with, like 7 to 10 people, so I can spend time with individuals, because I really like that part of it. And that's why I asked if it was something you'd do again, because I know that the first little classes that I did on my own here where I live, they were fun. I was scared as hell the first time because I thought, oh my God, I hope I don't say something stupid or whatever, But once I got done with it, I thought, man, this was fun. Like, I enjoyed the teaching side of it, and part of me always has this fear that I'm going to fall away from photography and be one of those people that, like, I just want to go teach. And that's not what I want to do, but I really enjoy it too at the same time. What are you laughing at, Joe?
I haven't done like anything recently, and it frustrates me so much. Like I did a mini phone photo walk this weekend just because I haven't shot anything recently. My computer I needed to wipe it, so I haven't even like reinstalled Lightroom yet. Oh God, yeah. I need to shoot something, and it's driving me nuts. But there's just so much stuff that's coming up instead. So I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
You had to up and moving such a big task.
Yes. So I have to. I'm packing up some stuff. I'm not, unfortunately, because our trip out east has to be so. It's like 3 12-hour days. I'm not going to be able to make anything super cool like I did last time, because I was really looking forward to hopefully having the time and the money to do like a nice hyperlapse. That's definitely not going to happen. The battery on the 1D that I got repaired died, the aftermarket one, so I have to actually go find another one somewhere to even have that thing be usable. So yeah, it's been an interesting gear shenanigans for the first part of 2014.
I recommend you pick something that you have to make your portfolio for the trip. So I'll do this whenever, just whenever I don't know what to shoot. And so you could do something like this comes to mind, and feel free to judge me that it comes to mind. But you photograph every toilet you have to stop at.
Yes, that's awesome. No, really.
Yeah, no, that is a great idea. That's a great idea.
Some of them are going to be really clean, and some of them, so you'll remember certain things around the toilet that will always remind you of the trip. Like, oh, that toilet had like a murder scene in it. Remember that? That was in X state. And
that's great.
you had diarrhea, but you didn't care because there's a toilet and it was super gross, and I don't know, just stories. And then, oh, remember this other toilet was super clean, and I will always stop at that rest stop if I'm ever on that highway.
I can't wait to share this online for Alex, and it's just going to be a bunch of pictures of toilets, and no one is going to get the joke.
People will like it. I mean,
it won't be a joke. It's
I'm
legit.
sure people love it. Yeah, so Zach says that excuses are like assholes regarding me, but he loves your idea as well. Everybody, Zach is he's online right now, but not with us. Unfortunately, he's working or something. So now, especially since he's listening, I can talk all the shit I want about how he's working and unable to make it tonight. Wait for it. But anyway, so yeah. Sorry, I
oh no, it's okay. It's just I think I thought of this because one time I was on a trip and I didn't know what to shoot, and I hate shooting tourist stuff. We were in Europe, and I was like, I don't want to shoot. We were like at Versailles. It's like, oh, there's nothing to shoot at Versailles. So I always photograph the toilet lines. So like every women's toilet line I would photograph. So I have like this collection of toilet lines, how long they are. How, I would always be happy when there wasn't a line. Oh, this women's toilet had no line. So
I know that you and Trevor like to go to Japan every year, right? Now,
yes.
Do you do a theme when you go to Japan every year, or is it just more of like, hey, I'm just going on a trip, I'm not really worried about a theme because it's something I do regularly?
Yeah, so Japan is probably the only time I ever do a certain amount of street photography, which I don't tend to really care for because I don't like non-contractual photography. But Japan and Tokyo in particular is confounding because every time I go there, I think I'm really going to capture the feeling of that city this time, and I never do. And no one ever does. I don't think Trey Ratcliffe has. I don't think anybody has captured Tokyo well. And I think maybe because it just can't be. So I'm always thinking, yeah, I'm going to get that shot that really expresses how I feel when I'm there, and I don't think it can be done.
That's definitely fair. Cool. All right, so Jamie, what have you been up to?
Oh boy, I really wasn't too ready for that this time. I've been playing around with, I've talked about it before, the fisheye body cap lens that Olympus makes. It's, of course, screen share time, so let me do that. It's basically, it's the size of a lens cap, hence body cap lens. And it's just fun because...
So is it like a screw-on, or is that something separate?
It actually has the mount.
So, okay. So
okay, so there it is right there. It's like an Oreo cookie is what it is. I mean, it's tiny. So that's the body cap lens with the actual lens cap mounted on the back of it, so it's even thinner when you take that cap off.
Holy hell.
So it's a 9mm fisheye. It's fixed aperture f8. There are no moving mechanisms inside this lens. It's not. There's no electronic interface with the camera. So you put it on,
so it's manual,
and you just go. Yeah. So, and you can see down at the bottom of the in the bottom image here, you can see that you've got your 3 different focal lengths that you can set it to. So you've got like this, like a half-foot mark. You've got infinity, and in between there is kind of like the hyperfocal distance of the lens, which is kind of weird on a fisheye because hyperfocal starts at like what, 12 inches or something? I don't know. So anyways, you just throw this on and you just go. You don't think, you just go have fun and just shoot. So it's not the sharpest, most accurate lens out there, obviously, because it's a $90 lens. But it's fun to put on the camera and just have fun with. I was just out walking the other evening with my wife, and there's an empty lot like a few blocks over that's kind of overgrown, and I noticed a pile of old bicycles that had weeds growing up around them. So I just threw the camera, actually dangling the camera over the fence that you can see in the background. I set the timer to like 10 seconds and hit the shutter button, and I didn't have to worry about focusing, so I just dangled it using the camera strap over the fence to get that shot. And
wow.
And I'm always shooting these silos that are near my house as well, so it gives you an idea of this is straight out of camera, so it's got nice vibrant colors that come out of the lens. Again, for $99, you're kind of crazy to to not give it a shot. At least that's kind of how I feel about it.
Sounds like the Canon Nifty 50.
And this will kind of go along the lines of, something like Alex was talking about, your little project for coming across the country. There's literally no excuse not to shoot something when you're driving. There really isn't. And this lens is kind of doing the same thing for me. I'm not doing a cross-country trip, obviously, but it's one of those things where there's no excuse if I can just throw something on really quick and just walk and shoot. And it doesn't have to be anything in particular. It's just get the damn camera out, Joe. Shoot. No excuses.
Yeah. No, trust me, I will be shooting. I will definitely be shooting. I just got to figure out what I'm going to do, because one of my coworkers...
It sounds like you just have to get out and walk. Didn't they have a study about that recently?
Yeah, they did. They definitely did. So that made me really happy, because I really do love photo walks. And Jamie, to talk about your thing earlier, we actually do cap our photo walks, I think, at like 25 or 30 people, which we never ever hit. We've been close. I think we've been close to 20, but normally at that point in time, just designate a couple people there that are like super users or that you know really well,
right?
And then point people there.
Drive up from my Kelby walk when I do that. I think last year I had 75 people.
What is that?
When is that?
Yeah.
It's usually like the first week in October, maybe.
Oh, I'll be there. Okay, yeah. Well, I'll get something on the calendar. We'll definitely show up.
At what point does it become a photo mob? I'm imagining.
See, here's the cool thing about, at least when I do my walks, my Kelby walk that I host, every year it's at this nature preserve, which, you're thinking, oh my God, 75 people in a nature preserve, that's real serene. But what I do is I actually break it up into groups, because there are numerous trails. And, we have our big powwow at the beginning, and then I just kind of talk about what we're doing there and what the point of it all is. And then I kind of get people broken up into smaller groups, and then everybody just kind of makes their way around. And because these trails kind of intersect with each other at different locations, we all we'll run into each other at different points, and it's usually pretty fun. But yeah, I can see how an urban photo walk with 75 people would just look like a flash mob with cameras or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been on a photo walk. Walk me through, in case there's other people who don't know what these are, how do these go down? So I've been to photo workshops, but a photo walk, I've heard that one of the benefits is that you can get some urban photography a little more safely, but aren't you shooting largely the same stuff, or is that not the case?
It is the case, but I'm going to talk right over the top of Joe. What's cool about it, though, is that I kind of find that even though you can have a large group of people, for example, I've got an Urbex trip to Detroit coming up in 2 weeks, and there are probably going to be 20 of us going, and 20 people in some, in the same room or whatever of a building, you'll still find that you get a lot of different looks. Sure, there will be the people that aren't willing to do anything more than just stand with the camera right in front of them. Those people are probably going to get all the same shot. But when I get in those situations, I like to start getting people to think off that same plane that they're normally looking at when they're in their everyday life, So, and though, when you get in the photo walk environment, I like to kind of help direct people that look like they don't know how to get outside of that mentality of just hold camera in front of face, push button, So it's easy to get people.
So it sounds like it's a composition exercise, a really big composition exercise.
For me, that's kind of how I treat it. Go ahead, Joe. I'll stop talking over you.
No worries. Yeah. So, and I think that it's not just composition. It's also so for Canon people on photo walks that I've been on, I will often let them try a lens that I'm carrying in my bag. So some people may show up with a kit lens. I'm like, all right, so here's what the upgrade's like. Go take some photos with this. Or here's a macro. Go try that out. Or here's a fisheye. Go check this out. Because sometimes when I'm taking, because I'll be taking pictures of stuff as well when we're wandering around whatever place that we're going to. And it's something where it's like, all right, so, because some people may be like, all right, how did you just get that shot? Or what are you taking a picture of? And it's like, here, so try this. Or if you have a macro, like here, go out of the green mode, let's go to aperture priority, let's crank this down and start messing around with stuff like that. So to me, it's always been teaching without a class necessarily. It's been more like just kind of a very fluid, like one-on-one, so you don't feel like you're obligated to necessarily have to talk to everybody and like have make sure that they leave with something, but it's more along the lines of if people are curious, you don't ignore them.
And it's nice to just get in a social setting with like-minded people.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that, yeah, you know, it's just like Joe said, you know, it turns into a learning experience for a lot of people, I think.
Well, so when I first did this with Zach and I, way back in, I think, God, it's almost been like 2 years since we started the Photo Walk Alliance, which was a total accident. I recruited Zach because he knew more than I did. So I was like, instead of trying to have him teach me and unfortunately have to pay him money, I was like, how can I get this out of him for free?
Oh, that was my next question is, are people paying for this in the same way that they would pay for a class? I'd imagine not.
No. So you're not, because we make, at least for the Photo Walk Alliance, we make sure that to tell people this is not a class. So if the event, sometimes the event is free because it's a way for us to kind of give back to the photography community, because I fall firmly in the camp of the more people that have cameras in the hands, the better. Because everybody has a different journey, and it's not necessarily going to be stealing somebody else's work.
Right.
You know, good photography is still good photography, regardless of who takes it. And so it's something where, like, that's really what we try to angle this at. Like, we don't have this as a class. And back in Baltimore, this was, like, unheard of. Like, in San Francisco, you can find a photo walk almost any day of the week, but definitely almost every week. But in Baltimore, the only thing that we found was paid classes that might have a photo walk portion, which are great. I'm not bashing them at all, but that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to do something that was a little less pressure. The only time we really charge money is if we need to, like, get a group of people in for admission or something, and we'll try to, like, do like a group buy to save people time. We did do T-shirts associated with tickets one time that turned out to be a disaster due to the T-shirt lead time, so we've kind of uncoupled that. But it's something where, yeah, it's usually free or very cheap, and that's, like, the fun part about it is you get to meet some really cool people. So, like, some of the photo walks that I've done in the San Francisco area, it's really awesome to see some of the people that I've ended up meeting through there. So, like, Thomas Hawk, for instance, was on a Flickr photo walk a year ago, and I'm just wandering around with a large group of people that was set up by Marcus, I can never pronounce his last name right, Speary, one of the head product guys from Flickr, and it was, like, the only time I've been able to, like, just walk up to Thomas Hawk and introduce myself. So yeah, so sometimes you have, like, celebrities or photo celebrities or whatever show up and stuff like this, and that can get kind of mob-like for those walks, but the ones that, like, Jamie and I do usually are a little bit more intimate, and that's, like, the fun part is because people end up leaving with stuff and wanting to come back.
Gotcha.
Wow, that was a very long-winded answer. But yeah, so that was the really cool part about starting up the TPA on the East Coast. Was it was awesome to bring people together that both knew more than I did and knew less than I did, and kind of have those levels start to mix. So Jamie, I'm excited about yours coming up.
Thanks.
Plus, I want to play with some of the Olympus stuff.
Oh, there'll be plenty of that.
So yeah, so speaking of Olympus and 4/3, Alex, aren't you about to make a big gear change too?
Yeah, although I kind of got cold feet, but not as far as adopting Micro 4/3 is concerned, because I still want to get the OMD EM1, but I don't know if I want to give up my D800 at the same time. So I'm currently just selling my 2470 and purchasing probably a different lens with that. And then my studio mate is already has an OMD. And so we're thinking about just pulling our gear together. He's doing a lot more video. He has like a GH4, has the OMD, has a 5D Mark II as well. And then with my D800 and then some lens money, we can just have this arsenal of gear. We're figuring out how to keep ourselves spoiled, how to have our cake and eat it too. The things that very much attract me to the OMD is the electronic viewfinder. I have really weird vision. And like my pupils are oversized, and I have extreme astigmatism, and I have all these strange eye things, and so focusing's always been very difficult for me. And the electronic viewfinder and the focusing system on the OMD was like, man, I felt normal. I was like, this must be what other people experience that don't have these eye things. Um, so that I really love that. I love some of the lenses, and I also love the spirit of the format. The universality of this mount system, I can really just politically get behind. But I feel myself golden handcuffed to my large sensor on the D800, even though sometimes that's hampering. So I'm trying to figure out a way to keep both. But I am very excited.
If you have the ability to keep both, that's the way to go. I mean, I'll admit, you know, even with the position I'm in, I'm still jealous. I wouldn't mind being able to have a second system to use. I mean, they both definitely have their benefits, without a doubt. So, you know, to be ambiguous with your systems, that's awesome.
Yeah,
definitely jealous of that.
And that's what's tough about sponsorship too. And yeah, I've seen this a lot. My sponsorships are very, very loose. So, for instance, I use Felix gear and pimp Felix gear, but I'm not forbidden from using Broncolor or anything else. But there are some that are set up that way, and the rewards are greater, but then the restrictions are greater too. So that is, yeah, the downside to someone in your position, Jamie, is like, oh, you know, you kind of like lust after these other systems, even though you're very faithful and married and happy. Your eye wanders, like that's what happens. And yeah, I guess I'm just a libertine with gear. I just want a little bit of everything. I don't want to commit.
So, regarding like studio work with the electronic viewfinder, do you have anything that you don't like about that? I know that there seems to be one thing that everybody talks about that drives them nuts, and most people don't realize they can change that, is that because the camera doesn't know that you're working with off-camera lighting, your view in your viewfinder will look dark often. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I've noticed that.
You can turn that off. What that's doing is it's simulating, you know, because it's an electronic viewfinder and you're generally 99% of the time getting what the finished product will look like.
Right.
That's what it would look like if you didn't have those studio lights rocking. So you can go into your menu and go into, there's a thing called Live View Boost.
Okay.
And normally that's set to, whatever it's set to now, turn it to the opposite one. So I think you turn it on, which sounds counterintuitive.
Right.
Then you will get the normal display, just to help you out there. But yeah. And I wanted to ask you about Felix too. I didn't know that you actually like had a sponsorship deal with them, like you shoot with them. Like I know you were on before, and you brought that crazy ass like fiber optic light, which is super cool. And this guy I know, Julio Ciorio, he's been talking a lot about them lately too. So you use them regularly then?
Yeah, so they have a new system coming out. It's public, but it's not shipping yet. It is a more powerful version of their previous LEDs that I've had on the show. And it's supposed to be about the equivalent of a 500-watt strobe. And I am finding that to be pretty close to the case. I tested it out on somebody using actually the Olympus, and one of my big fears with using the continuous lighting was the grain, you know, having to boost the ISO so much. With my D800, that's not really an issue, but with the Olympus, I was concerned. And I was still able to keep the ISO somewhere around 400 and use this continuous light. So that's pretty good, because normally I would have to be doing 1200 or more to really get the punchy look I'm looking for out of continuous lighting. And I'll be doing more with this light this weekend. I'm doing a piece for 500px, and nice. There's no real angle for it. It's just a behind the scenes on the set and seeing what this continuous light can do, and then working with gels. But yeah, I'm oscillating as much with the continuous lighting and strobe lighting as I am with the Micro Four Thirds and then your standard pentaprism system. In the same way, it's I really like these old systems. I'm used to these older systems. The quality is there. Like the Braun color strobes are mind-blowing, and the D800 sensor is amazing. It's all big, it's all heavy, it's all expensive. And then you get something like the Felix kit, the 360 kit, these like little Fresnel cases and these little svelte lights and little micro 4/3 system. Everything's so small and portable and nice and light, but there are limitations. The brightness quite isn't there, or even just the shape of this new light doesn't really accommodate a lot of modifiers. That's a bummer. There's all these concessions, and it's interesting being on the brink of these new formats. I want them to come and just replace. I want everything to come and smash the old, but they're not quite there yet.
I ask about the Felix stuff because, well, sorry, Joe. I'm just really curious about the portability factor because I'm shooting micro 4/3, so everything's small. It's easy to get everything around, but I don't have anything that's worth a crap lighting-wise, and I don't want to invest in anything right now because everything would be big and not super easily portable, and I think a smaller system would be kind of fun for what I want to do with it. Like I've been doing a few shoots at this abandoned train that I have access to, and it's not going to accommodate like humongous lights and big giant 7-foot octabanks or nothing crazy like that, but a smaller lighting system. And I just wanted to ask about powering the Felix. Is the demand for electricity as high as it would be on a strobe? I mean, can you do like a portable battery pack to power those?
Yeah, they accept the PTAP cables that you can connect to, say, like an Anton Bauer, any broadcast quality battery. I have not had a chance to test that out yet to see just how long it lasts. But I'd imagine it's on par with light panels. The last time I used an Anton Bauer on the back of a 1x1 LED, I think it lasted a good 45 minutes, 50 minutes, just full on, straight, just stayed on, and then it started to drain.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was quite a long time. Good enough for your average shoot. But yeah, the batteries, and I actually expressed that to them. I said, if you could get a system where the battery could be easily, because right now they just dangle from the head. It just hangs there, and they need a way to attach that. But yeah, for portability, you're still not going to beat speed lights. Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah, because speed lights have their own issues.
So, Alex, what day this weekend are you doing that by chance? Is it Saturday or Sunday?
It's Sunday.
Sunday?
Yeah.
And it's at your studio space in San Francisco?
It is. And we're going to be filming there and also taking pictures.
So we may connect offline to see if I can swing by because I do want to see it before I go. We're probably going to be doing Alcatraz that day. Since we will have basically no furniture in our apartment. We're packing up Saturday. Okay. So we'll definitely be up in the city on Sunday, and I'd love to go check it out because kind of like I think Zach and I both really share the feeling that you get to play with some awesome, really cool stuff in a studio, especially around lighting. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of really cool to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff / things that you're currently tinkering with. So
yeah, it'll be a full shoot with a makeup artist, costumer, and
we
models.
will. I mean,
so
I won't photobomb the camera, but yeah, I definitely want to check out the space.
I know that it sounds like I'm inferring that it'll be a full house, and it will be, but no, what I'm actually inferring is that you should stop by because you'll get to see the studio in its full glory, as opposed to how it normally looks, which is just me all by myself tinkering with something and.
Very cool, very cool. Alrighty, so we want to talk about some news stuff before it's too late. All right, so let's just get the first one out of the way because I have a feeling that we're not going to get to anything else today. So, Alex, would you like to do the lead-in for this, or would you like me to do the lead-in for this?
I assume you're talking about the patent on a lighting diagram So for those who haven't seen this, Amazon successfully patented a seamless white product photography based lighting setup. And this happened back in March, so I'm not sure why this is making the rounds only now. I'm not sure if it's just because it was made public recently, even though the patent was successfully filed in March. But it's been exploding a little bit and recently. And I read it. I read most of it. I didn't read every single page, but I read like the first few pages trying to get through this and the legalese of it to describe a lighting setup is really interesting. But essentially, they have your subjects on the platform of a very specific size, and you have a very specific number of lights in very specific positions, and also at very specific settings. All these things in conjunction with one another produce this no need to edit product photo that is somehow perfect for all situations. And so they've patented that. So a lot of people are angry, and myself included, because how do you do that? Could you imagine if I patented my chiaroscuro lighting setup? I mean, what an outrage. That's really insane. It's essentially that, but because it is so complex and so specific, it's unenforceable, and it's almost like not even replicable. I mean, I suppose it's all laid out. I could replicate it, but probably not. And if they tried to claim that I was replicating it, you'd just like, I'll kick that light by 10 degrees there. Now it's different. I'm not really sure why they bothered. I mean, I suppose if it truly is a perfect, seamless, and attractive lighting setup for every single possible product, no matter how reflective or what its shape is, I suppose that's pretty novel. Maybe that's worth patenting, but the whole thing feels like an April Fool's joke. It just doesn't seem real to me. Why are you not seeing more of these? I would think that if anyone, Apple would have patented something like this a long time ago. Anyway, Joe, I know that your family has some business in the patent world.
So I'm going to start out with my rant about this with the full discretion that I am not a lawyer, so what I am about to say, do not take as legal advice. Please find a lawyer if you need one. I am not licensed as a lawyer. My father actually happens to be a patent lawyer. He's had his own firm like the past 35 years, so I got to grow up with a very unique view about stuff like this. So on one hand, I know how Amazon got it. It was definitely a very unique format. I'm surprised it didn't have something that automated the setup, so some sort of timer or some sort of conveyor belt to do multiple ones, because I think that's where they were trying to go, is we have a super effective way to take a bunch of product photographies that doesn't need any post-processing to immediately put them up to a site. However, the only thing in this patent is the actual setup. It's not the whole process to go from one place to another, which is interesting. I can see why the USPTO probably granted that. However, as soon as Amazon uses this to sue somebody, like an eBay or an Apple or somebody else like that, I would imagine the first thing people are going to do is put that patent up for re-exam and basically shatter it, because you can definitely either it's arguably unenforceable. Like there's no way to really know. Like, the photographer's not going to have diagrams or schematics or something of what they're doing. Maybe Amazon is, but nobody else really. You know, things vary.
Right.
And then it's broad, but it's not broad. And my argument would be that, you know, it's oh my God, Zach, stop. You know, it's just something where it's yes, like I can see why it would make sense, but I don't think it's actually going to stand up in court as soon as they use it proactively.
Right.
It's not going to stand up in court. And that's the thing about patents is you don't necessarily do a patent to be all feel good and fuzzy. You do a patent because you are able to defend it. Because if you're not able to defend it, it ends up being void anyway. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Amazon actually tries to use this in any sort of situation, which, knowing Amazon, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. However, I don't think it's going to necessarily last because of what it's actually doing.
So if they want to keep this patent, they probably best not put anyone to challenge over it, because...
Well, see, that's the problem, though, because if you're not going to challenge anybody that may be infringing on this...
There's no point in the patent.
There's no point in the patent. So, like, I think they've... You see this occasionally with stuff like this, like, they've kind of put, you know... Not necessarily... They put themselves in a pickle, to be perfectly honest about this, because it's going to be extremely tough to enforce, if it's enforceable at all. And as soon as they use it proactively, I would argue, unless it's a very, very tiny, like a tiny company or somebody that can't afford it, the first recommendation would be a patent re-exam to actually invalidate the patent before it even goes to trial. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, you know, it's open season. Tech companies like to play big, so it's interesting to see. But I wasn't entirely surprised that the USPTO granted it, but I would be surprised if it actually stands up to a re-exam, just because of what it is and how, you know, arguably it's not something necessarily as novel as like a slide to unlock patent or something like that.
I wonder if this is something that's actually a response. You were saying like these companies like to, you know, play large and the way they do. I wonder if this patent is a response to something very specific, and then the entire photographic community is just like these casualties as far as responding to this. You know, that this has something to do with eBay or some unknown competitor or something. And sometimes I wonder if half the time these things are not jokes, but just like, this guy made me mad. I know this guy who works here. I'm gonna patent my lighting setup. I'm just gonna do it, and I'm, you know, and then I'm gonna make it
baseball.
Right, and then I'm gonna make it public, and then I'm gonna just laugh.
Well, I mean, it has. I mean, patents have to be public. Otherwise, well, okay, sorry, I lied. They don't have to be public, but unless it's not national security related, they are public.
Right.
So have either of you, since this broke, have either of you gone to Amazon to find an example of where this has been used?
Well,
I'm just curious.
That's the thing. Arguably, it's almost anything that they have their personal stock photography for. So, you know, just pulling up Amazon now.
Yes,
they seem to use just a lot of other people's stock too.
It's usually what I see.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder too.
Right.
I wonder if Amazon really came up with this, or, and this is all just completely wondering. I have no way of knowing this, but I wonder. To me, when I saw that, I thought Zappos, and I know they bought Zappos, and I'm like, I feel like Zappos came up with this. I don't feel like Amazon did. I feel like this is a Zappos lighting setup.
And I mean, it very well could be. I mean, and then the other interesting thing about it is and I don't think they could ever get a patent on this, but like if you just pull up the Amazon website for like the Kindle Fire HDX, like it's product photography. Like you have people's hands in it. So it's something, and that's a lot of the ways that a lot of the format that Apple kind of uses for some of their product photography. Google's kind of adopted that too, like the very clean, minimalist white background, medium format, like super, super high resolution stuff. So yeah, so it's definitely I'd be shocked if this actually survives anybody actually using it, but I think ironically enough it has angered a lot of people, and I'm trying to think of another recent patent like filing that has done that.
I tried to look. I looked for patents for other lighting diagrams. I couldn't really find any. Or I couldn't find any. I'm sure maybe there are some. I just couldn't find any. But my sort of snarky photographer response to this too, reading their description on how this was a completely don't need to edit it. Everything is perfectly seamless. perfectly white. The edge lighting's great. And I'm thinking, it takes you that many lights to do that? Like, really? Because it takes me 4, and I didn't need to patent that. I mean, I'm sure that so many photographers, especially the product photographers, were like, there's a lot of ways to get that. You know, they made it sound like any other possible product photography requires so much post, and it's like, no. That's a recent luxury, actually. Product photographies existed well before post was so easy. I thought that was really just like, okay, the nerve.
Right. So I actually put in chat. So Zach just sent me a Roku shot on Amazon, which looks like it could be that setup. I'm not sure if it's actually Roku stock photography.
Yeah, I've been looking at the Zappo site. I think Alex is right.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I think that's. I understand that you're trying to get any advantage you can, but I'm surprised this isn't like the total like, hey, I have a way to get stuff on the internet fast, and here's the entire process. And maybe there's a couple other patents for different parts of that process that just haven't been publicized,
right.
Which is entirely possible. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's going to be interesting to see where this goes.
It's because
I know Amazon's not going to just say like, oh, I'm not going to use it because it's a huge waste of money for them. But at the same time, the effectiveness of it is probably questionable, if anything, because like you mentioned, Alex, it's very easy to tweak that format. Like remove a light, for instance, you're no longer infringing.
Right.
Do some post, arguably no longer infringing. So it's. I mean, I guess you can say, like, hey, if you have a studio set up and you're taking a lot of product shots and it looks like this, tough. But I imagine that a lot of nice products on Amazon's site as well are probably done professionally by those companies anyway, and they share them to anybody that sells them. Right. So, like Apple, for instance, I would be shocked if they didn't actually give some companies like Amazon or something like, here is the shots of the product that you guys can use to sell this. Like, put this on your website. So it's specifically for stuff that they have to shoot. So
I'm surprised there wasn't more outrage. I saw a bunch of us gave the tip to Petapixel. I mean, they were probably going to run it regardless of the tips.
Right.
But, you know, it was like, it got some traction, and then it was talked about on a couple of forums, but I thought, I want this, like, on magazines. I was just like, how is this not, like, so much outrage? But I don't know. Maybe it's just the lighting nerd thing, but I just couldn't believe it. I wanted to flip over my desk.
Well, I think that's also, it could be a byproduct of people not necessarily totally understanding how patents work. In general, because I mean they can be a little bit obtuse, and then there's like certain things you have to kind of worry about. So a lot of software patents recently have been kind of up for trial to see if they're legitimate or not. Like, can you actually patent code is, you know, an ongoing question. So I think
because I had so many things come to mind when I saw this. Like Peter Hurley's signature lighting style has been copied so many times. Now so many people are doing the continuous lighting, 2 banks here, bank here, bank here, tight sort of thing. And I thought, well, gosh, I didn't know he could have patented that.
Well, I mean, maybe, but and then are you going to spend all of the money to go attack everybody for it? Because I mean, because that's the thing is I used to joke about that all the time as a kid, like, oh yeah, I'm going to go patent this, and my dad was like, well, get ready for a lot of legal battles because that's what you'll be doing the entire time.
Right.
Because if you hunt down one person and don't hunt down the second, then why, you know, should you even have the patent? So it's kind of crazy. And then I guess it does shed some light onto the tech industry on the software side of why they're always suing each other, because they almost have to. Because if you don't, as soon as you stop defending something, you lose it. So it's something where, yeah, he probably could arguably patent that setup, but he'd have to defend it, and it would probably consume his life and all of his money defending it.
Right.
What's the point?
Wouldn't be worth
So,
it, yeah.
yeah, and so that's what I'm kind of curious about Amazon doing this is because now they're going to have to go spend legal money to go defend this, and it may or may not survive, but they got to do it anyway, otherwise they're going to lose it. So why bother? But I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure it's a dig at eBay or something like that, but
Yeah.
if eBay comes back with a modified lighting setup for 3 different lights or 5 different lights, slightly different, I'm just going to shake my head because I'm like, yep, all these are going to go down as soon as somebody sues somebody else.
So speaking of lighting, Zach really wants me to recommend a piece of lighting. Let's see what his question is. One piece of studio gear everyone should have.
I don't know if it has to be lighting specific, but it would be nice if it was lighting specific.
Just like a tool that I'm trying to think of something. I mean, barring the things that you have to have, like, power and, light stand. I'm not going to play that game. It's like the desert island. Well, do I have electricity? It's like, yes, you have all the things you would need. Lately, well, okay. So for what I do, lately I've been really dependent on a couple of things. I've been really enjoying using a beauty dish, but I only say that if you were shooting only people. It has less use in other situations.
Is that like a modified reflector?
So the beauty dish is round and hard, and it has a deflector. So you're not getting direct light, and you're not getting purely bounced light. You're getting a light that comes out of the flash and into the deflector, and then gets pushed like a bunch of marbles back into this circular dish. And it makes a very, very even and flattering light for just about every face, just by virtue of that shape. And you can get very big ones and deep ones and shallow ones that have different qualities and produce kind of different contrasts. But I've been lately liking that, but I wouldn't say it's indispensable.
So do you, and I'm asking this because I really don't know, so would you use that in place of a ring light for photographing people's faces?
No, because a ring light's going to really fill in every possible shadow, whereas the beauty dish, you still get a very attractive shadow under the nose and under the chin, and really brings in the cheekbones. Also, the catch light will be different, but yeah, probably just the lowly reflector is really, and get a big reflector. I've been saved so many times by, I can get so much done with one light when I have a 4 to 6 foot white reflector to fill in the rest with. I've used it as a wall, I've used it as a backdrop, I've used it on the floor when I have like 3 or 4 people I need to photograph, and I'm shooting it all butterfly style, so just one light that's a rather large source just above their heads, tilted downward, but I'm getting these really long shadows under the chin. I just get one of these like 6 foot white, and they collapse like a small reflector. But then they pop out and they're really big, and I could just stick that right on the ground, prop it up with like a shoe or something, and it's just at enough angle, and it's big, so that light comes down and bounces back up and fills. So yeah, I would say just having a big roll-up white reflector. They're like $40. They're usually black on one side, white on the other side, but you can get them with like silver on one side. But get a big one, like 4 to 6 feet, for real.
And so you don't have a stand or anything to hold that. It's either like it's down on the ground or somebody else does it?
Yeah, someone's holding it. They usually have these like loops on them, so you can hang them from C-stands or boom poles or just tack them up. But I have one in my studio that's just they're light enough that you could just pin it to a wall with a tack. And they lean pretty well. they're like a sail in the wind. They're a little bit hard to use outside, but boy, having one of those is great. And really, you can, and all I'm describing really is like a V flat. I mean, people love those too. It's just a big piece of white foam. Maybe one side's painted black if you want a flag. Having a big white square is so useful. At the workshop, actually, I had a bunch of modifiers. Everyone was doing one light stuff. And I didn't get too much into bounce because I didn't want to overwhelm anyone. But one of the things the studio had was they just had stacks of differently sized white boards. And I thought, that's the most useful thing in here. Is a bunch of these white boards. All you need is like a strobe or a flash, just one little flash and a bunch of white boards, and you can make so many lighting setups. It'll be as if you have a bunch of lights. So yeah, I would say that's probably. I'm really getting into the beauty dish right now, but if there's one thing you have to have, you need to have like a bunch of foam core or one of those reflectors that rolls up, or yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Yeah, and Zach actually just mentioned this, that it's actually interesting how you mentioned that treating light as a liquid, because I think that's a very good way to put it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I haven't heard of it that way before, so I think that's a good way to put it. So Jamie, quickly, recommendation. It can be Micro Four Thirds specific.
Oh, come on, that's not my entire life. So for people who like landscape photography, we'll do the complete opposite spectrum here. There's an app called the Photographer's Ephemeris. And,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you know that one. So
I know what you're talking about.
I'm not sure if it's iOS specific. I think you could probably answer to whether or not there's an Android version.
There is an Android version.
Okay, so basically the Photographer's Ephemeris is this really cool overlay that overlays over the top of Google Earth. And what it'll do is it'll show you the sunrise and sunset, moonrise and moonset times, as well as whether the moon is full or waxing or waning or whatever. Yeah, the angle that it's going to come up at or whatever. The reason I like to use it, or what I use it for, is I've got specific locations that I'll scout. And I know that, let's say I'm going to go to a specific location on May 3rd of next year. I can tell it, I can put in the coordinates for my location and the date and time that I'll be there, and I'll know exactly where the sun is going to be on the horizon, what its azimuth is, everything. So it's really cool to help you scout out not only what the lighting is going to be like at your location. Obviously, light's dynamic; it's going to change. You can't control it, but you'll get a really good idea of what to expect. Yeah. So the Photographer's Ephemeris. There's actually a desktop version of the app too that I run on my computers at home, but I also have it on my phone and iPad. So it's pretty fun.
I think it's a couple bucks.
Yeah, it's not a free one. Yeah.
But I got Android, I think, for free. So sometimes it will be free. You have to keep a lookout for it. But yeah, I think I paid for it for iOS and got it free for Android, or maybe it was the other way around. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a cool tool. So a good example of when it would be used. We've got these different eclipses that occur, and if you have a specific geographic location that has a feature that you would want to use in your foreground to add some interest to your otherwise big white orb in the sky, then you'd know where the big white orb in the sky is going to be relative to your point of interest. So, yay. Mm-hmm. That's my jig.
Nice. Oh, God, so now I have to recommend something.
That's right.
So, God, one thing that I would definitely recommend.
A big white dog on the bed. Everybody has to have one of those.
Yeah, that's my walking reflector right back there.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, walking reflector. Mm-hmm. So I would say probably one thing that I found to be very I do have something. A speed light has probably been one of my most valuable things that I've purchased. I actually bought one off of Zach, one of his old ones, and I want to get a couple others because using that either on camera or off camera, which is what I'm exploring now, but really even on camera, it totally changes what your camera can do compared to the built-in flash. And it's just something where, yes, if you have to use the built-in flash and the pins, it's great, but having a speed light that you can bounce off the ceiling just totally makes everything a completely different story in terms of lighting. So that would be my big recommendation. I know you can get both branded and off aftermarket ones on Amazon, but a speed light is definitely something where if you have that, it also gives you a great excuse to really start messing around with light.
And that white ceiling is a perfect. White ceilings are my favorite thing to exist.
Yeah.
I love them. I walk into any room and it's a white ceiling, and it's like, I like you, white ceiling.
That's great. That's great. All right, so we're getting to the end of the hour. As I thought, we're not going to get to a couple of things, but we'll talk about them next week. So we'll probably keep doing this recommendations at the end. I think that was a great idea, Alex. So
yes,
I think,
it was.
Thank you for contributing that wonderful idea. We truly appreciate it. So anyway, if you guys don't have anything else to say, we'll go ahead and wrap up. But it's been a great show. I'm happy to be back. It's my second to last show as a California resident.
Aww.
So it's kind of a little heartfelt, but it still will be fun.
Earthquake.
So, but all right. So, but thank you everybody for tuning in and listening. Or if you're watching this afterwards, thanks for actually clicking the play button. Make sure to share the show. Tell your friends. We actually have some really cool stuff planned for next week, which is going to be our 52nd episode. So we've been broadcasting for about a year now. We've had to take some breaks here and there, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for what's going to happen, but you'll definitely want to tune in next week. Tell your friends to tune in as well. We'd like to thank Alex again for being a wonderful guest and joining us. I think you're probably one of the guests that's been on the show the longest. So thanks for coming back, and I hope you guys will all join us next week. Zach will be back. We should have a full house, maybe even a few more people. We'll see. So anyway, so this is Joe, Jamie, and Alex from the F Stops here, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye.